Hey, it's Arenthio again with another stupid video. And I guess this is kind of a response video, but kind of isn't. There was a video called something along the lines of Outgrowing the Ugly Duckling by Ragehound.
Quack, 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 quack.
Basically, what the video revolved around was the whole phenomena during the 90s, apparently, where you would have these TV shows where you would have like conventionally ugly people, right? And through some kind of aesthetic change, usually through some kind of cosmetic surgery, they would appear more conventionally attractive afterwards. And the whole issue Ragehound had with the show was basically when people didn't want to have their bodies altered, they would either be shamed into doing so, or they would be kicked out of the show due to being disagreeable. So if any of the participants ever had doubts about like altering their bodies and whatnot, like they would basically be demonized for what they would perceive as being like causing drama, right? So you weren't really allowed to rock the boat in that situation.
Oh, hi, it's another show. Yeah, let's bring this clown in now. You need a facelift, you need a W lift.
But I don't want to though.
Bye!
And obviously this being a TV show that's broadcasted to the general public, it basically creates an arbitrary standard that people are expected to uphold. And if they don't fit these very narrow standards, the information that's fed to them in this kind of media communicates to them that they're not good enough. Like, oh, you're too short, oh, you're too fat, oh, your face is too ugly, etc., you know? Obviously, that's why people's self-esteems generally are shit, because the standards that are set for everyone are so arbitrarily high that the vast majority of people aren't able to achieve these standards. Hold on, let me get that.
Oh, why are you so negative? You're meanie.
I agree with the premise that the entire show was basically perpetuating this idea that some people are acceptable and some people aren't, just due to something that they can't change, and that being a big problem. But the only thing I really found kind of unresolved was the fact that Ragehound talked about this issue being resolved, right? Like the show doesn't exist anymore, so these issues aren't as bad as they used to be. Like, whew, we dodged a bullet there, you know? I can't really say much about the 90s since I really didn't exist back then, but then again, I can still speak on how things are right now through a different perspective. I honestly think these Lucas standards are even worse than they used to be, honestly, since, like, back then, even though these shows were overtly telling people that they're not acceptable if they're below a certain standard, at least back then, most niche communities weren't really that integrated into social media, right? Because social media wasn't as prevalent back then. Like, with these standards being disseminated on TV, they're trying to appeal to the normie audience, right? So they're not exactly trying to appeal to everyone in a tailor-made fashion. Like, nowadays, even if you go to a quote-unquote niche community, like, you see the types of people that are promoted on there, right? Social media has a tendency of promoting people who fit a certain looks criteria. Like, if you don't believe me, like the first time I used social media, someone actually convinced me to make one. I really didn't want to make one since, at the time I was butt ugly, like I was overweight, I had a lot of acne, and so on and so forth. So basically, I really didn't go anywhere on social media, while my more attractive peers, went a lot further. Like, I literally tried everything. I even tried making fun of my own race. Like, I know it sounds really stupid, but I was super desperate. I literally even, like, made my profile picture like a bag of rice or something. I was basically a stupid clown. I didn't respect myself, so no one else respected me in turn. So obviously, like a lot of other people, I was like, fuck this, I don't want to participate in social media, and I just quit for years on end until pretty recently. The only drawback with that, honestly, was the fact that I really didn't get a head start when it came to social media as a tool, right? Social media is a useful tool that you have to develop over time. I mean, you kind of need one to bring traffic to whatever you're making, right? Like, if you want to be an artist, you kind of have to have a social media presence to be able to actually have a place where people are willing to spend money on your art. Or else, like, if you have 2 followers, you're not going to be able to get your products out to anyone. And obviously, social networking, having access to people in general. Okay, sorry for that stupid tangent, but anyways, the entire point I'm making with this is there's a massive opportunity cost, where there's basically a deficit of time where someone who isn't attractive, quote-unquote, would have. In a sense, they're a few years behind. And there's obviously the massive bias that people have towards, like, people that fit this particular standard. They're able to gain a following a lot faster, and the following itself is a lot more simpish. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? That's why communities that are quote-unquote made up of outcasts, like, they're becoming increasingly more normified in a sense, right? Like, the people that are more prominent in those communities are the types of people who would be successful in normie spheres. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of these niche communities are coping mechanisms for people like us, right? Like, there's a reason why when you go into these anime communities, for instance, like, everyone has an anime profile picture, right? Or any other outcast community for that matter. Like, they have a profile picture that's drawn rather than it being their own face. And this is obviously in contrast to normie spheres, right? Like, everyone's supposed to show their face. And outcasts aren't necessarily the types of people who would hang out in those spaces. But nowadays, there seems to be a slight change in this, right? Like, the new emerging sort of stars in these communities, they show their face, right? They're conventionally attractive, quote unquote. They have the exact same body types and so on and so forth, you know? Like, there really doesn't seem to be much diversity as it used to be, like, even like a couple of years ago, right? And it's just getting worse these days, right? It's not just social media in general, it's the type of social media. Like TikTok, for instance, right? The main reason I don't like the app is because it's a purely visual form of media, since you're only allowed to post 1-minute videos maximum. The thing is, you can't really post your personality, you can't demonstrate your personality in the span of a single minute. That's why the most popular people on that site are attractive people, right? It's just attractive people lip syncing to mainstream songs. Like, at this point, it goes back to the original point I was making. At least before, these standards were applied to a general audience, so there were a few cracks that people could escape to. But nowadays, since a lot of these niche communities are so integrated with social media, and the fact that social media is becoming increasingly more look-centric, there aren't really as many places that people who may not adhere to Western beauty standards may escape to, right? Basically, the same rules seem to apply at the same level to, like, really niche communities as opposed to, like, normie communities, right? There really isn't as many places to escape to. Just to recap, I do agree with the fact that television media was generally made in a way that it would make 99% of people feel like garbage for something they can't change or something they were born with. But honestly, I would argue in many ways it's worse than it used to be, since there really aren't as many places where these standards aren't as strictly enforced. Anyways, that's all I have to say for now, and thanks for watching. If you'd like, please like or comment or even subscribe, and if you want to talk to me directly, I'll have my Discord link in the description below.